This is Chamber Live, and I'm Greg Durocher, President and CEO of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and these are unprecedented times for sure. Using technology is the best way to communicate relevant information, everything from business continuity and best practices to your health, both physical and mental, are vital now as we approach recovery of our economy as well. So today, from Ways to Wellbeing, I'm joined with Angela Englander to talk about stress and dealing with what's going on in our community and of course COVID-19 and the stress and realities of, am I going to get it? What should I do to protect myself? There is a myriad of things going through business people's minds right now. How have you seen it from your perspective, being a therapist?
It's been really wild and it's been really interesting. And I've noticed this big divide where one half of the people who were kind of doing therapy, doing those things prior and already struggled with mental health, feel like now the playing field has been leveled. Now everyone's where they once were.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a whole group of people who were really either like chugging along nicely or kind of holding on, overworking. We're all small business people, kind of struggling to get by, struggling to make it all work, who are kind of holding on and now thinking, yikes, now what? Mm-hmm. And is that final straw breaking and people are feeling like, what do I do? How do I make this all come together? How do I make it all work? How do I get there?
We talk, because we're the chamber, we talk a lot about the business owners and the stress going through. These are individuals that have, probably spent their life savings building their business, mortgaged their home, and just about every other asset that they have. They now see it fleeting out the window. And as I was telling you before we went on, I was talking to an individual about 68 or 69 years old, who feels relatively confident with the cash that he's got in his company, although it'll only last about another month. Yeah. And here's a 68, 69-year-old who's got everything invested into his business and says, wait a minute, I was thinking about retiring. Retirement now isn't even in his scope, simply because of what has happened in these last 2 weeks.
Well, that's exactly. So many of us are now thinking, what does this mean for our future? Because as small business owners, we're kind of looking at, how do I get to that next place? What will it look like? How do I keep all the pieces flowing? And you probably thought, okay, I have the cash, I've got the staff, I've got the resources. But now everything's kind of been stepped back. And what I'm hoping is that what will happen is we'll come together as a community and we'll start to say, how do we help each other out? How do we work on this together? How can we kind of bridge those gaps, and how can we partnership up, and how can we find new ways of doing things where once we were on our own with our own business? How do we...
Can that be mentally satisfying?
I think so. I think we've really underestimated the importance of having community and having connection, because we cannot survive without community. We cannot survive without connection to other people.
We can't survive isolated in our basement for the rest of our lives.
Exactly. Well, it's ridiculous. And our mental health will crash very, very quickly if we're avoiding everyone, if we're staying entirely to ourselves, and if we're doing everything online. Because, one, our local businesses, these are the people who are investing in us, who are investing in our community, who are wanting better around here. So if everyone's just like, okay, I'm going to buy things online, I'm going to stay to myself, this and that, short term it'll feel really rewarding and gratifying, and it'll reduce your anxiety. Long term, people will get depressed, people will get shut down, and people will feel like they're on their own, and they can't.
It's kind of like that you and I were talking about, what are you doing now? Because, people are, if they're experiencing stress in their own lives, they're stressed about coming in contact with people because that's all they hear on the news. So you're trying to do a different model of maybe doing a little bit more electronic and a little bit more, remotely with your clientele. But that's not a forever solution.
Well, that's exactly. It's interesting because for us, this is our year of expansion. We've just purchased a building in Tillsonburg. We were just looking for a building in Cambridge. We've just been doing all that. So it's been 2 weeks since we were open in Tillsonburg. Now what we've done is transition to online and phone therapy for the short term while we figure out what's a long-term solution. What's that going to look like? And it's interesting, too, because I feel like people in the healthcare industry, myself included, would be people who would come more in contact with people. Because we're the people who are going to be seeing those first responders, seeing the nurses, seeing the doctors, seeing the small business owners, seeing all those people in our clinic. So short term, Skype and phone are the solution we're looking at. But then long term, what is the solution? And one thing I'm thinking is to make more things free available to people through Instagram at Ways to Wellbeing Therapy, through YouTube, things like that. But I feel like it's all short-term Band-Aid solutions. And what it is how do we give people the skills to get by now until they can really resume the weekly thorough therapy that they once enjoyed?
Because that's the crux of what is successful from your perspective, is being able to sit down like we are sitting down.
Yeah.
Now, we are practicing social distancing.
Yes.
However, but being able to sit down face to face and wandering that conversation to really find the root cause.
Well, that's exactly. And so much would be also like body movement and me monitoring someone.
Yeah.
Like, are their pupils dilating? Is their heart going faster? Are they sweaty? Are they fidgety? Like, monitoring all those body signs.
Yeah, that's, you don't think of the physical aspects of mental health. And that's important to a therapist.
Well, it's huge. When someone gets anxious, you can see their body reacting. You can see the adrenaline. You can see all those things. And it doesn't look the same over video technology.
Yeah.
And one part of my therapy is like eye movement, knee tapping, hand fuzzy things. Like, it's a big piece. And right now what we're trying to do, a lot of the therapists, is how do we find a new way to do this? How do we kind of both use Skype and video technology and give people the skills and tools to report back to us what they're noticing in their body?
Yeah.
How do we empower them with that information?
Yeah, that'd be
so
interesting.
we do have to take a step back.
You know, I talked to an individual this morning, has a big organization, small businesses, all of them, but he has 8 of them.
Oh, wow.
He had to do something this past weekend that he's never had to do in his 20-year career of owning these businesses. He had to lay off 100 employees.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
To him, it was the most devastating thing he's ever done as a business owner, to tell people he can't afford to pay them anymore.
It's so sad.
That they have to seek help. So how does that small business person who legitimately and actually, which 99.9% of them do, care about their employees, deal with that? Not only from their own perspective, but be able to communicate to their employees that things will be okay.
Well, it's so hard because I think one part is really acknowledging our own experience and acknowledging our own grief. That's a big time of grieving. And as a business owner, your employees, all those things, they're your extended family. They're the people you care about. They're the people you have chosen to be part of your journey, part of your vision. So it's almost a matter of, I guess, having the phone lines open, having the email open, and helping them figure out, how do I apply for EI? How do I go to those next steps? And how do we kind of come together as an organization to support one another through this? Is it somehow sharing food? Is it sharing resources? Is it sharing newsletters? Is it just providing emotional support? Hey, we're going to get through this. Hey, yeah, it's tough times. And now, especially like financial insecurity it's nuts. It's a huge concern for people because you expect the income, all those things. But trades have slowed, buying has slowed, all those things have slowed. But I think the human connection piece, that piece of, hey, I can't fix this, I can't save you, I can't have a solution, but I can be there if you want to call and talk, if you want to pop a quick email or a quick text, because even though there might be so many people in the company, as a business owner, as a director, you want to have that personal connection with each and every one of those people and just be there in the grief. And grief often looks like kind of the shock at the beginning and the denial, like, no, this can't be, how is it so? And then almost that anger and bartering, I want something to be different, I want to be back at work, I want to be able to keep my employees, I want to, and the passion of that, but then also honoring kind of the sadness after, and realizing, holy, like, I never would have seen this coming, I never would have seen this loss, and yet here we are grieving, and here we are having to slow down, having to be just with our family, just with the people that we're close to, and finding a new way to kind of, I guess, heal that before we climb back out of it.
I see people too online. I guess you might want to term it as shelling themselves because they're reading all of this online. Every single post virtually is something to do with the pandemic, the COVID-19. And I'm not trying to belittle its issues and concern for it, but how do you deal with the emotion that's coming back to people that are coming out of social media, where there's criticism to some businesses for staying open. These people are trying to preserve their life savings, and they're being criticized for trying to survive, and not only trying to survive themselves, but trying to create an opportunity for all of the people that work for them so that they can survive as well. And yet, this nonsensical berating of individuals, both politicians and businesses and people, and then how do we as business owners, how do we decipher this and ignore this and put this on the back burner, and how do we deal with the mental aspects that are going to affect us?
Well, I think it's very curious because I think a big part of it is, as small business owners, we need to come together as a community. We need to have one another's backs, because it is times right now where it's like the Wild West, and especially social media, where anyone can say anything, do anything, attack you, say this or that. I think a lot of people are going to give a lot of backlash right now because they're also in the grief. They're also in the anger and I want to lash out at something. I want to point some finger. And if I can point a finger at you, then that takes the pressure off me.
Yeah.
So it's that real cat eat cat world, I guess. But right now it's a matter of knowing that we as a business community, each and every business, I think, wants to help one another.
Yeah.
We want to have each other's backs. And figuring out, how can we connect to the other local businesses? How can we support one another? How can we be on that journey together? And I'm thinking probably right now financial isn't the way, but emotional might be.
Emotional, but I think too, we all have needs. We all have needs going on. We have to, there's some things that we have to buy.
Very true.
We have consumables, whether it's a business, even if the business isn't fully functioning right now, maybe partially functioning, you still are consuming something.
That's true.
We can work with each other. We can deal with each other. We can help one another by trading with one another, by buying with one another, because I think that makes us feel good that I've supported another local entrepreneur. I think it also makes you feel good when a local business comes looking for your supplies and you're a local community member. And it could change the way we do business going forward after this is gone.
Well, I think it will. I think this summer is probably going to be shaky, but by the fall, we're going to turn towards small businesses. We're going to turn towards local. I think online buying and all those things, we'll be so tired of online by the time this summer ends that we'll be just like wanting that.
I've talked about the pent-up demand. It's funny, this one small business that is operating and taking a little bit of heat, she was telling me on the weekend that the few customers that have come in actually made a point to go up to her and tell her that they appreciated the fact she didn't close her doors.
Oh, wow.
Because they had something to do, and they had something to look at that took their mind away from CNN or CBC or CTV's news on the COVID pandemic. It was really refreshing from her perspective. It took away all of those negative comments that were coming her way. It made that one positive, very, very special to her. But I think there's going to be some pent-up demand.
There's got to be. And I think as far as self-care, ironically, I mean, going to those local restaurants, going to those local people who have something unique, something different to sell or offer, is great self-care for us. Trying something new, now that we finally can slow down and have the time to do that, where so many people were going so hard before that they didn't have that chance.
Yeah.
So
what would you recommend, whether you're a business owner or whether you're an employee of a chamber member, it doesn't really matter. What should be foremost in our mind that we should be concentrating on thinking to try and take down some of these mental fears that we have?
I think there are three big, huge things right now. One is community. Stay connected. I've talked to people who are like, Angela, I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm going to stay at home. I'm like, my doors are shut. My windows are down. I don't want the neighbors to see me. But you can't, because you're going to fall into a huge depression or anxiety and you're going to be in a really bad place. Stay connected. 2, self-care. Make a weekly self-care routine. I'm a huge self-care advocate, and it can be things like stretching, deep breathing, drawing, art, whatever it is, does not matter. Self-care. 3, reach out for help if you need it. Yes, reach out to therapists, but reach out to anyone for help, because my fear is that people will get depressed, anxious, be grieving, be in that trauma reaction and not know, because we are in a global trauma, and fall into either dark depression or suicidality, and I do not want that. A lot of therapists myself included, are being a little bit more flexible with cancellations, with our availability, with prices, with all those things, because we do not want to see, similar to other world events like wars and things like that, where everyone's coasting by in the trauma and then they crash.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that crash, especially not in our community.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting. Most weekends at the Durocher household, we kind of hang around home. There's not a whole lot that we necessarily do. Maybe a little bit of stuff around the house, but nothing, you know, really significant. And it seemed that it wasn't halfway through Saturday. And it was no different than any other weekend before. All of a sudden, everybody's kind of on edge. What do we do next? What do we, you know, we got to keep busy. We got to do, and I think it was the anxiety in the back of our mind saying, this is what isolation is. Yeah. This is, you know, I shouldn't or I can't go see anyone. I can't go to the store. I shouldn't go here. I shouldn't go there. And I think deep down inside it created, you know, something of feeling like you've been doing this forever when it was like a half a day. And, yeah. You know, so isolation for us was, you know, almost panic-stricken by noon on Saturday.
Yeah.
So what we did Saturday night was we just, you know, said, well, we can't stand this anymore. We just jumped in the car and went for a ride.
Yeah, no harm in that.
It was amazing, the feeling that everybody had when we got home. We felt like, you know, this is wonderful. I think it was a good mental exercise for us to do. Yes. So you don't necessarily have to jump in the car and go for a ride. You can go for a walk. You can go down the street. Doesn't really matter what you do, but you probably are making a huge mistake at locking your doors and nailing them shut and drawing the drapes and staying inside. That's not going to help you mentally get through this. It's certainly not going to help you physically.
Well, I'd love to say enjoy the sunshine, but right now it's enjoy the snowstorm.
I think that's going to change, though. I think that's going to change. Angela, you know what? It's been wonderful. I know people can certainly reach out to you at waystowellbeing.ca. You're Angela at waystowellbeing.ca.
Email or text 647-834-8631.
Great. That's awesome. You're accessible because you're waiting for them to call you right now, and you'll find a way to help them.
Yes.
And I think we all got to find our way to help one another. And thank you so much for coming in as a chamber member and helping send this message to our chamber members.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening, all of you at home. I appreciate you.
And hopefully you can come back and give us all of the ways to move forward in a robust economy and deal with the issues at that point, too.
Most definitely. That'll be a summer one.
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Angela.
Take care. You're welcome. Bye.